a traditional schedule. So welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and the lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the Valley of the Beast, the liberal, nutty zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And speaking of St. Paul, the capital, which has got the real lunatics in it. We're going to get into this story. What are we going to be talking about, MAGA Jesse?
Yep, we got plenty of good stuff to be getting into today. We will be talking about the transgender protesters at the Capitol. We'll be breaking down that video, everything that's going on in that situation. We'll be talking about the quorum issue. Of course, we've been talking a lot about that, where the legislature stands right now, and how the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, is just now about to be ruling on a major case related to that. We'll also be talking about how the GOP, House GOP, has sent a strongly worded letter demanding that the Democrats show up to do their jobs. And then we will discuss the inauguration, which I was able to go to Washington, D.C., be a part of the experience in Washington, D.C. as that all unfolded. That was exciting. We'll give a breakdown there. I see that we've got Bill Dangsman, Tucker91, Napkin 8, Dave's Right, and K-Wall for Life all in the chat, so appreciate all you guys tuning in.
Good to see you guys. Let us know if you're watching and where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to interrupt us at any time, hit that Rumble Rant button. It's real easy. If you're on your phone, you just hit the... Oh, shoot, what do? You hit the
I don't know.
Side button, whatever.
I don't use Rumble.
It's fun. And we
I think you hit the $sign.
Yeah, but there's, like, at least on my iPhone, you got to click that button to confirm. I'll pretend like I know what the hell I'm talking about. Anyhow, it's fun. We'll interrupt whatever we're talking about. We'll read your comment live on air. And if you're not watching live on air, you can still support our show by going to truthhurtsnews.com and becoming a premium subscriber. I'll also put the link here in the comment section. We got a ton of comments.
Yeah, we do. Right off the bat. Yeah, Dave's Right says, good day. We got Tucker91, good afternoon, everyone. Bill Dangsman is the nut job with the bullhorn. Brad Tabke's wife. Good question. I doubt it, though. Mary Kay says... it's a great day. Trump is back. I agree. K-Wall for Life says cheers. We got Mark Kroll says need sunglasses for that hat, Jesse. And that's hat. Right. We are in the golden age of America. And so I had to, when I saw this golden MAGA hat for sale, I had to get one. So we also got, let's see here. Hate MN saying, is the MNGOP actually going to find their spine and initiate the recall petitions? It seems like it's moving in that direction. Napkin 8 need a whale harpoon for protection at the Capitol. Quite possibly. Yep, so, and yeah, we got more and more people showing up. Marty 1967, Chaz 651, so appreciate all you guys tuning in here. We got a good show lined up.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun here today. Our great sponsors, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. That's a cell phone. It goes right to Warren. And by the way, if you tell him I told you to call, maybe he'll sing for you, because he sings in my church choir. It's not just a great real estate agent and believes the things that you and I believe in. He sings in my church choir. That's a real estate agent that you want to work with right there. Beautiful bass voice, by the way. And I think he's coming to the event tonight, the party that we got. We do a once-a-month party, so you can see Warren there tonight. Also, if you're looking to buy a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company a chance at financing your home. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. They're not just a great meme game on Facebook and Twitter. They're also a damn good mortgage company. If you're buying a home, might as well give them a chance at financing a home. You might be getting a better deal with them. Also, we're brought to you by Alpine Cabtree in St. Cloud, Minnesota. All right, Jesse.
Yeah, I want to get a couple more comments here. People are just going off. I see Tucker91 is saying, I think you're saying this about the transgender. Give me, correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying it's the long-lost Dudley brother. I was totally expecting Hulk Hogan to come out and unleash Hulkamania on his ass. Well, I don't know if you can see the shirt. I guess not at this point.
Ma'am.
I got a Trumpamania shirt on. Proud to be a real American nowadays. So, it's we got plenty of good stuff, especially on this crazy protester. So
it's so crazy. This is just crazy, nutty. Okay, let's pull up the video. This is from the committee. We're going to show you first a video footage. I think this is taken by your favorite legislator there, Jesse, Walter Hudson. Libs of TikTok picked it up. This is, this is clearly a dude, okay? You know, it's not just how nutty he is, it's the whole gang who's nutty. By the way, I'm sure he wants to pick a fight with me now that they outed him as a dude, but just watch the video. Here we go. This is the nutcase in front, interrupting, by the way, of all committees, the Public Safety Committee. Go ahead.
Whose house is this? Whose house is this? You chicken meatball-headed motherfucker. Whose house is this?
Sorry, language. I forgot about the language here.
Whose house is this? Yeah, go ahead and kick me out. It'll be on every fucking news organization in the country.
Look at these wackos.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
I'm really sorry. I stopped real quick. Sorry. I'm really sorry about the language. I forgot to mention that. I know a lot of people watch the show with kids. My bad on that part. We're just going to air the language because you can get the essence of what they're doing. We should have thought maybe we could have bleeped it, but then you wouldn't hear anything because it's all just. It's just all swear words here.
Yeah, K-Wall for Life says it would take a pro to bleep out all the curses by that troll.
Yeah, exactly. So anyhow,
right, it would just be beep, 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 beep.
If only you had a pro. Somewhere there's one, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go ahead and play it.
Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm done with it.
Stop. No, pause it right there. No, pause it. These two might take the cake here. Just go. Just a little. Yeah, the ones on the far left. Pun intended. By the way, isn't it interesting they're all wearing masks? Right? Except for the one with the belly shirt. What the hell is going on here? Like, this is just craziness. All right, keep playing it.
You get your good glamour shots there, motherfucker. I remember the shit that you said on the fucking floor. I remember the shit that you said, misgendering Lee Finke, lying about us. Go fuck yourself. I can stand in here and fucking yell all day. I don't give a shit. You want to drag me out? We're going to have a bunch of cameras on us, including that one, that we're going to put on all the news organizations. What? What? I can't hear you, motherfucker. What? Exactly. Shut the fuck up. You want to drag me out? Be my fucking guest. Come get me. But it's going to be on the news. Everyone's going to know what the fuck y'all are up to. And we're done with it.
When do we want it? Now. When do we want it?
This is an illegitimate committee. They do not have to be here. We need to have everyone to be here as they
Using the talking points right now, the Democrats, just so you know, those are the talking points of the actual Minnesota House Democrats. Keep going.
When do we want it?
We're done.
When do we want it?
Want to drag me out, then drag me out. I'm not moving.
When do we want it?
Wait, 450 pounds, motherfucker. I hope y'all
450. He weighs 450 pounds.
No, we're staying here until all y'all file out, go home, and think about your life and think about what the fuck you're doing in the state of Minnesota. This is an illegitimate committee. Y'all need to leave. Want to drag me out? Have fun explaining it to all the local news orgs. And the major ones when it gets picked up. No, I'm going to stay here until they leave and drag me out. Drag me out. Have fun. Nope, I'm done. I'm staying here. These motherfuckers have no legitimate right to stay here. They don't. This is a
Do you notice how they always have to chant things too? It's just like, it's a cult.
Equal rights now.
Go ahead.
Equal rights now.
No, then you're gonna have to
Oh, the belly's not showing anymore.
No, drag me out. Drag me out.
This is, by the way, a montage of there's like 20 minutes of this video.
But what you're gonna have to do if you want me to leave, I want all these motherfuckers to leave. This is an illegitimate section. Drag me out here, then drag me out here. It'll be on the fucking news, and then y'all will have to answer to the Minnesota citizens. I know you don't want that, but that's what's gonna happen. Because this is bullshit, and we're not standing for it. Y'all keep fucking pushing us and pushing us and pushing us. When do you think we're gonna start pushing back? You wanna drag me out? You wanna have it on the news? You wanna fucking explain that to the Minnesota people?
Okay. Now let's go to the committee. This was the Public Safety Committee. I think it's technically Public Finance and Policy Committee in the Minnesota House. Once again, for those that don't know at this point, the Minnesota Democrats have not shown up and actually participated in the legislative process yet in Minnesota. Or sorry, in the Minnesota House. The Democrats did in the Senate, but not in the House. Okay, this is testimony from a police association, and this is video of them disrupting, and you're going to see right away House Media Services is just going to cut the audio and just play the music, but you get to watch the whole dynamics. Go ahead.
Helps to address the problems and fixes for our profession in Minnesota.
Quite enough of that bullshit. We're done with this. No, this is an illegitimate committee. You don't have quorum in the House. House. You know this is bullshit.
And just so you know that they're cutting the audio out here and they're just going to play the music like it's just a normal thing.
At least they kept the camera on it.
Yeah.
You
and
know,
then
but
all the whack jobs stand up and then they keep it up. Now you can see the video that I just showed you is taken by Jesse's favorite legislator, Walter Hudson. There, he's in the first row closest to us in red. Okay, I'm gonna take my headphones off here because you're just not gonna hear any audio. What's that?
That's maroon. What are you talking?
Maroon, whatever. Maroon. Okay. Maroon is a shade of red. Paul Novotny is the chair of the committee. He's on the middle right screen. Now look at that doorway in the top left. You're gonna start seeing Capitol Police congregate in that doorway. I guess that would be the Sergeant at Arms office. Jesse, I'm not so certain. Some law enforcement in the Capitol assembles at this door. This goes on for 20 some minutes. We're not gonna play the whole thing. And by the way, just so you guys know, the legislature is meeting right now. The Minnesota House and Republicans and Democrats are making oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court. We will show you some of the live stream. You see now Walter in the maroon suit is now filming this. So that's when he gave the scan and obviously captured the belly shirt dude. In fact, I think they're all dudes, but it's hard to tell sometimes. But this nut job just keeps yelling. And, quite frankly, the posture of that person seems a little bit threatening. I mean, that's a 450-pound dude yelling at people's face, disrupting government proceeding. Mm-hmm. At some point, you'll see this person, and we can kind of fast forward. You're going to still see, just hit the forward button, Dawson, so we can kind of move a little faster on this. You'll see there's more Capitol security congregating at the door doing jack crap about this. I mean, they let this thing go on for 20 minutes, and then eventually what you're going to see is there you go, two times speed. That's how we should do it. We gotta have some like goofy music too as he's going around. Mm-hmm. But eventually he's going to go over and actually go up by the chair, and at some point that seemed to be what made the Capitol security come into the room and try to get in between Paul Novotny.
Yeah, well,
and
Novotny said something there.
Yeah.
And then stands up, and yeah. But it is crazy how long it takes. It's crazy.
Right. I mean, this is a legitimate government proceeding. I mean, this person's obviously arguing it's not, but this person's a nutcase. And honest to God, this is the kind of person used to put in asylums. So now you see the three people there. They're at the doorway. They're just standing there. It's just interesting that you could just hijack a committee hearing and nothing even happens. But I guess, in some regards, you don't want to escalate a situation, I guess is the purpose of why they would do that. And
hoping
quite frankly, from the politics of it, why not let these wacko jobs make themselves look worse and worse, right? It's good for politics, Okay, see, now he's heading over to Paul Novotny, and that's where those guys start coming out. I mean, this person's talking through the whole thing and yelling. And this goes on and on and on. And eventually what happens is they just vacate the room, which probably, you can see as they're starting to leave, is probably the only thing you could have done. Because, it might have been hard to drag this person out. You probably would have needed a tractor. So, chains and a tractor to drag that 450-pound dude out of there, who says he believes he's a woman, but, probably doesn't really believe that. He's just a wacko bird. And so they leave the chambers, and that ends the rest of it. So, Jesse, you dug into this. Who is this person? And what are the connections? Because I think there's a legislator behind this.
One quick comment to read before then. Mark Krols, he obviously, he says his favorite part of the video was the insult against Walter Hudson. So I just want to get that out there. But yeah, no, I mean, Finke is definitely involved in this protest that got involved here. Dawson, let's go ahead and pull up the A4. We can look at
here's
Blue
the
Sky.
exact quote, by the way. because Walter Hudson's now made it his Twitter bio, and it's chicken meatball headed mother trucker. I changed the last word just so you guys can understand.
Do you think
chicken meatball headed mother trucker?
Do you think that's a good play on his end, or do you think it's an L to call yourself a chicken?
I think it shows Walter's got a little bit of humor left, in him. Jesse thinks probably different.
No, it's fine. I don't care. Let's go to the A4.
By the way, Phil Cann says, why did no one throw that beast out? I don't know how you throw that beast out. He says he's 450 pounds. It's probably the first truth he told all day.
All right, so this is Finke publishing this on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is obviously the alternative to X for the liberals. So this was posted by Finke that says, this is today at the Minnesota Capitol, 2 p.m. The MAGA Minnesota coup continues. Show up and let the Republicans know that these fascist tactics are not welcome. Okay, so shutting down speech apparently is their tactic, but they claim to be shutting down fascism. So go ahead and click on that picture, Dawson. And so it shows there Trump and the House and the GOP are directly connected. It's time to show up and protest illegal Republican action in Minnesota. Take us off the screen, Dawson. Take me off the screen, just so people can see that. There is actually something that right there, it says at Sharky Lemon. Okay, so I decided I'm going to go out and pursue what is at Sharky Lemon. We will get to that in just 1 second, actually.
Tucker makes a good comment. Walter's black. Was he implying that he likes chicken? It does sound racist. I never thought of that. He didn't say fried chicken, though, Tucker. But, yeah, there's very, very racist of that he, she, they.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's pull up the A5. Dawson, go ahead and pull up the A5, which is Finke now saying that despite sharing that post, obviously saying go to this protest, Finke is now saying, I didn't participate or direct the protest action at the Capitol yesterday. But let's be clear about the Republican playbook. They want to silence and eradicate our community. In the last 48 hours, our new president erased transgender people from legal recognition and attempted to remove nearly all of our federal recognitions as protections as a community. Republicans in the House are pushing the same hateful agenda amidst a legislative coup. So rather than take the bait from Republicans, who, by the way, have been silent about Trump pardoning January 6 rioters that assaulted cops, we should stay focused on our work ahead. Yada, 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 yada. So, Finke is trying to say that Finke had no involvement in this thing, talking about January 6. Actually, I did see a story. It's funny enough. Trump pardoned a transgender man to woman, I think, who was involved in January 6. So, Finke can say whatever, but Trump obviously has anyone's back if they got his back. It's just interesting that Finke is now trying to say that, this is, fascist tactics and everything, when really, and no involvement in the protests at all, when clearly they are connected and sharing the information about the protests. I don't know if there was any other state representatives or state senators or anything that were sharing that out there. But it's obvious that if you look at the crew of people that were in there, those are Finke's types.
And by the way, it's very clear Finke's man hands were all over this thing, right? By the way, for people that don't know who Stinky Finke is, we call him Lee Finke. His real name's Chris Finke, is the first transgender in the Minnesota House. This person is a nutcase. And we have no sympathy for Lee Finke here, because Lee Finke is the one that captained the legislation that allows transgender surgeries for 6-year-olds in this state. I mean, that's just a disgusting thing. We've done a lot about him. You can go into some of our past shows to learn more about Stinky Finke, as we call him. A far leftist nutball. Dawson, I posted. Oh no, I didn't post it in here. Did you have a picture of the Capitol, the small crowd that they had outside? Okay, all right. It was probably about a couple dozen people at the most that they had out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you've connected it to Finke. Finke's the only one that we know actually promoted this event. I'm sure Finke said multiple times, Jesse, that it was at Donald Trump's behest that there was an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Seems to be at the behest of Lee Finke that people went and disrupted the government proceedings. But, of course, the Democrats don't believe there's a legitimate government proceeding happening, right? That's their talking point. They haven't showed up to work yet. All right, what else do we know about this organizer?
Right. Well, and, to that point too, I'm a resident of 66A. The people of 66A are taking note of this, and we understand that we have the authority as residents of the community to try to remove Finke from office for this and several other reasons aside from not showing up and doing the job of a legislator. But we could look at the person who was listed as the organizer, who was listed on that flyer. Let's go ahead and pull up the A6, and we can look at the Sharky Lemon profile on Blue Sky. So as you can see, no post from today. I can't really read it on the screen. Something about being autistic in the second post there. And scroll down a little bit. Yeah, I'm too... go up. Never mind.
No,
it's
I'm too
unimportant.
autistic to talk with people. I don't know extremely well or over text.
Yep. So this is obviously, it's interesting that this organizer doesn't have anything about this on the on their Blue Sky account. And go ahead and click on the
Hold on,
picture
look at
too,
it. It
just
says
so people can
personally
see.
and professionally trans. I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
What does
yeah.
that mean,
I don't know
professionally
either.
trans?
And if you look at one of the 35 followers of, there's only 35 people following this crazy tranny. You can find Lee Finke on that list. So Finke's obviously
Go ahead and click
connected with whoever this is. Go ahead and scroll down just a little bit. You'll eventually see Finke. Yeah, right there.
How many pedophiles do you think we'll find? Wait, Finke says, what is that first word? Matka? What is that?
I have no idea.
Do you know what that is, Dawson?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, we're going to learn.
I'm
Art
not
person, queer person, activist, tree person, representative. What the hell's a tree person? Okay, we got to stop. I swear to God, I just saw Matka somewhere else on something we were watching. What is Matka?
I can look it up.
Google it or Bing it, whatever you do. Matka, M-A-T-K-A. Are we going to learn something that we don't want to learn? What is Matka silk? Matka.
Matka meaning.
Why don't you... Yeah. Why don't you just type in Matka and see what comes up?
Looks like it's a movie.
Is it a movie? Matka gambling?
Everything's leading to indie right now.
Does anyone in the comment section know? Interesting. Okay. Sorry to go on that tangent there, Dawson. I like learning.
Is it? Oh no, I thought it was like a MAGA, Make America Tolerant again or something, but it doesn't make any sense. I have no idea what it is.
Oh, you know what? Well, then it'd be capitalized, but Make America Trans
Kids.
Knowledgeable again?
Accepting. It's probably accepting.
What's the K?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Make
Never mind. I have no
America
idea.
Trans
This is
kind
weird
again?
Mad
Ah,
Libs
okay.
kinda.
Yeah,
You might not have been off on that, by the way, but then you'd think it'd be capitalized. All right. Anyhow, continue on.
Okay, yeah. And so let's go ahead and pull up the A7. So Walter Hudson did a little digging into this Amber Mum, who is the name of the crazy tranny protester that we were just watching the video of. We can see a little bit of information on them. Go ahead and click on the some of these pictures here. So that is them driving for the Aliveness Project van. Go ahead and keep scrolling through these pictures here. That's one time that they were, speaking on something. Yeah, I don't even want to say it's a dude or a girl.
It's a dude, right?
Well, yeah, but it's disgusting.
It's a beast.
And they're listed as a person who is testifying with the Aliveness Project. And there's the bullhorn. So just an interesting to see who this person exactly is. Let's go ahead and pull up the A8.
Should we have this person on the show? Maybe that'd be fun.
We
Good
should,
entertainment.
yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and pull up the A8, Dawson. Pull up the aliveness.org staff. We can see the listing of the staff for this organization, Aliveness Project. Go ahead and scroll down. And for some reason, you won't find this Amber listed on there at all. Let's go ahead and check out if we pull it up on the archive. So go ahead and pull up the A9, Dawson, because I went into the Wayback Machine, which is a tool you can use to be able to see web pages from previous time periods. And on that, there's actually a time grab from today that shows that Amber Mumm was listed on that staff. So go ahead and scroll down. It's gonna be in the middle somewhere. He's gonna be in the middle somewhere without a picture. Well, you're missing some of these.
There's a lot
Dawson.
more staff. Did they just cut everyone out?
They cut a ton of people out here. So I'm thinking, I wonder who else was involved. Yeah,
Prevention
right there.
Outreach Trans Community Specialist, she, her.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, so obviously the Aliveness Project is, doing, for some reason, covering it up that Amber Mumm was a part of it.
No, we were just changing our website. We just got rid of every staff. It had nothing to do with the fact that person was connected.
And
to us.
I found that screen grab whenever that was put in there on that archive website. That was put in there today. So that means they changed their website today to remove Amber Mumm, and they removed all those people. It makes you wonder what those other people are involved with too. Then, and this Amber Mumm isn't. There's actually even more to this story than people could even imagine. Let's go ahead and pull up the A10, and we can see that this isn't the first time that Amber Mumm has been in the news. So Amber Mumm claimed that after the election of Donald Trump, that a group of men beat another tranny in them, and then all of a sudden the video comes out, and the video does not corroborate their story at all, and it's a long video. We don't need to be clicking through it or anything, but people can check that out on their own, and that's on Alpha News. And as you can see, titled "Surveillance Video Challenges Media Activist Narrative of Alleged Downtown Minneapolis Attack." And obviously that was something that Finke was pushing as well. I think this is another Jussie Smollett example of people trying to claim they got attacked and this and that it's a Trump thing and yada, 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 when really they're just trying to, I don't know, maybe make a buck off a hate crime, or maybe they're just trying to just set a narrative, build something up in some certain direction for whatever reason. So this is, it's interesting that of all the people who this could be that's interrupting this meeting, it's a person who potentially Jussie Smolletted Minnesota on a transgender issue. And then finally, Dawson, let's go ahead and look at that email.
Hold on one second. It says, the two alleged victims described as trans women who had recently moved to Minnesota from Iowa were not shown or interviewed in the WCCO report, but Mitchell relayed that the two claimed they had been attacked by a group of men at a light rail station after one man hurled transphobic slurs at them. Amber Mumm, a trans community specialist with the Aliveness Project, was interviewed in the piece and said that, quote, people were cheering the attackers on while they were getting beaten. Oh, yeah. Like, the fact that anyone would even believe that story just seems ridiculous. And then, yeah, you're right. Lee Finke also added to that, and I guess this was a report by WCCO.
Mm-hmm.
And did you watch this video?
I did. I scanned through it, and it's a little bit tough to watch because you're sitting there waiting for something that doesn't happen. So, people can watch on their own in case I miss something.
Well, here's just what Crime Watch Minnesota reports from it. It says, Crime Watch has obtained surveillance video from the November 10th alleged attack on two trans people near 5th and Hennepin. Action takes place mostly in the upper left. Much of it is off camera. One of the pair appears to respond to provocation of some sort before they both appear to safely walk to the light rail platform. The pair then stop and appear to engage in a verbal exchange with parties off camera before both parties return to the opposite corner and engage in an altercation. Next, zoomed view. Whatever.
Is Crime Watch like a part of Alpha News or something?
It's an independent group. They do pretty good work, actually. I think they sprung up during the rioting in Minneapolis, and Alpha took once they hired Liz Collins, they took a very hard line, pro-police stance, and so I think it was kind of a nice joint working relationship.
I just wonder because I see they have that Alpha News. I don't even know how you get a Twitter emblem, but they have an Alpha News emblem next to their name, and I don't know what that means.
I mean, I know they work very closely together. Mm-hmm. So,
and then finally, let's look at the A11, Dawson. So this is something that I don't even think it's publicly available for people to know this information. So we can share it with you because as far as I know, the House public, all of the House committees were not open to the public. Maybe you had been aware of which committees your representative had been assigned to, but committee assignments, last I checked on the legislative website, they were still not posted, and especially with the fact that the legislature was, initially split 67-67. That's no longer the case. The Republicans have the majority, which means they have majority on committees. This is what it looked like before the committees were, before the 40B example had happened, and when it was looking like it was going to be a split legislature. So during that, as you can see listed on there, two very interesting names to find on there. Lee Finke is listed on there, who says that they have no involvement in coordinating people to go to the protest for the Public Safety, Finance, and Policy Committee. And also listed on there is Brad Tabke, who shouldn't even be sworn in as a legislator because they threw away 21 ballots in his race. So considering all of the problems that are going on in the Public Safety and Finance and Policy Committee, I think that Finke absolutely has involvement with that protest. We got a $5 Rumble Rant from JL Jazz says, OMG, stop the madness. These are some of the most deranged and unserious people. Exactly, we appreciate the Rumble Rant, and you're right, these people are unhinged and absolutely insane. Finke obviously realizes that he stepped in some crap with this one, and now you gotta, it's clear that he was involved.
Go to the A12, Dawson. This is actually not the only place in the country where these are happening. I posted this on Twitter the other day. This is I can't remember which capital this was at, but a couple of the LGBTQIA plus community, and let's just be honest, it's the trans part of the community. It's all one community, right? I think there's some dispute on that one, but this seems to be par for the course on how these guys operate and how they talk. By the way, I think if I remember right, that person in the bottom left was a legislator taking a selfie with them, so supported another state. But at least in Minnesota, they just come on into the Capitol and obstruct government proceedings, shall we? Right? At the behest of Lee Finke. This next segment is brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. Dawson, let's go live view of the court. This is the Minnesota Supreme Court. They're arguing. That's Paul Thiessen right there, who actually Tyson. I always say Thiessen. This is actually interesting about him. So he was the Speaker of the House in Minnesota, a Democrat. In fact, all justices on the Supreme Court are Democrats. They all were appointed by either Tim Walz or Governor Dayton. With that being said, and this is I can't tell who that is. So that must be the Democrats that are arguing. Let's go ahead and let's get some audio here. Let's hear what
you account for vacancies in determining whether a quorum exists in the House. Again, I counsel you to return to the plain language of the Constitution, but they are instructive in that they suggest that what is intended is a vote of particularly when we look at the language in Article 4, Section 23 regarding an override of a veto that refers to 2/3 of the House. It's referring to, again, that constitutionally created entity, not to its individual membership.
Go ahead, Justice Thiessen.
That's fine.
Counsel, can you explain to me why we shouldn't be following the interpretation of the U.S. Supreme Court of what happens with the U.S. Constitution, which has very similar language?
That's a very interesting question.
Why does that not control what we do? Can you walk me through that?
Yes, Your Honor. And
the U.S. House
I would point the court to
considers a quorum of the members that are elected, not 435.
251 A. 2nd 827, because that lays out in detailed stepwise manner the distinction between the relevant provisions of the Minnesota Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. Why do I say that a Florida court addressed those distinctions? It's because the pertinent language of the
hit the mute button on this. We'll keep this up just in case I don't know, something happens. I don't know what happened, to be honest with you. Let's talk about this issue here real quick. So this is a fascinating story. NPR News, for those that don't know at this point, I don't know how you don't know this, but the Democrats have refused to show up to the Minnesota House, even though they were required by law to show up. They haven't showed up to Minnesota House thinking that they could stop a quorum. Pretty much, Jesse, every legal argument I've heard from the Minnesota Democrats have been nuts. Even the Democrat Supreme Court ruled against Tim Walz last Friday, saying you didn't call a legal special election. So these guys are freaking nutcases. Not as nutty as obviously the trans people, but pretty close. Go ahead. We got
a $10 Rumble rant from K-Wall for Life. Says, sometimes I feel like I'm taking crazy pills following Minnesota politics. Thanks A4L crew for keeping us informed. Well, we thank you for tuning in and staying involved, because it's the only way that we can defeat the establishment is by grassroots patriots sticking together. So. And we have to be informed to do so. Yeah,
I mean, listen, K-Wall, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills too, and I'm just happy I got a platform to talk about it all the time. All right, looks like Democrats are done. Let's go back to the, they might be asking questions to the Republicans now.
Whew. The camera is loud.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. May it please the court, counsel. The judicial power includes reviewing the validity of statutes. It does not include reviewing the legislature's organization of itself or the legislature's leadership choices.
Republicans are going to argue that the court shouldn't even get into this
which
issue.
Our Constitution vests in the legislature,
separation of powers,
not in the judiciary. That, of course, is exactly the power that petitioners are asking this court to exercise here.
Petitioners being the Democrats here. I was going to read the arguments by the Republicans. Why don't we just watch it, right?
Separation of powers. Likewise, petitioners cannot and should not be able to invoke this court's extraordinary writs jurisdiction to address an alleged quorum problem that is of their own making.
It's a good point.
When there is a question about a quorum in one of the Minnesota houses of the legislature, the Constitution contemplates exactly what should happen. In the first place, the members of the legislature should come to the Capitol and do the jobs they were elected to do. Failing that, the members who are attending the sessions, whether they're a quorum or not, have the constitutional power to compel the attendance of absent members. The petitioners here are actively thwarting both of those constitutional remedies. The legislative petitioners are categorically refusing to participate in the legislative process that they were elected to.
That's not even disputed, by the way. No one can dispute that.
Or at least purporting to actively prevent the House from exercising its constitutional authority to determine the presence of a quorum, and quorum or not, to compel the attendance of absent members. The petitioners should not be able to leverage these counter-constitutional actions for a favorable judicial judgment on exactly the same issues. Finally, if the court reaches the merits, the question is whether a quorum of the Minnesota House of Representatives is a majority of current members or a majority of total seats, including vacant ones. Different jurisdictions have taken different approaches to that question, but Minnesota has long since made its choice. It's the same choice made by both houses of the U.S. Congress. A quorum is a majority of the members currently sitting. I was surprised to hear General Kramer talk so much about Eastland versus Gould, because although that does talk about what is the House, it also talks about what is a quorum of the House.
By the way, I believe this is Nicholas Nelson, who works for Cross Castle. I think that's who's arguing right now.
In Peterson versus Hoppy. Yes, that's what we were talking about in Eastland. And the court again most recently repeated that rule in its Ram development case. Petitioners give no reason to upend that settled rule of Minnesota law. So the petition should be denied on the merits, even were they not dismissed on jurisdictional grounds. I welcome the court's questions.
Okay, so this will be interesting. Let's hear how the court thinks through the arguments.
Issue, I don't think I saw quoted or cited, in your brief, Marbury versus Madison. I mean, we go back to sort of first principles, which basically states that it's the province and the duty of the judiciary to decide what the law is. And we certainly are hesitant, and rightfully so. We should be exercising judicial restraint when it when it comes to
Separation of powers.
dabbling into the business of a co-equal branch.
Right.
On the other hand, there are times, and we certainly have done this here in Minnesota, where the courts are required to step in. I mean, we said as much in Cruz Guzman, where we stepped in there to resolve a dispute in the legislature, saying they weren't following the Constitution. They had a constitutional duty to abide by the Education Clause. We said, so we've said that before. So I guess where I'm going with this is, if this isn't a case where there is an urgency, as we've talked about in some of our case law, to step in, what would be? Because what we have is a co-equal branch of government that is completely dysfunctional, that is not doing the will and the work of the people of Minnesota. Isn't that an instance where, if not the judicial branch, who steps in to resolve that?
Well, I think the House itself resolves the question, which is the doctrinally correct answer. But let me start by...
It hasn't.
Well, let me start by addressing the question of what would happen next.
Well, first of all, what is the House if you're wrong? There is no House.
I don't think.
I mean, how do you get to resolve it if you don't have a quorum to begin with?
I think that, well, the Constitution contemplates that the House can meet without a quorum, and it's still the real House, right? So I don't think anyone disputes that the House, when several dozen legislators met in the Capitol at the
they can meet to do what? To compel other people to come back.
They can compel other people to come.
So they didn't do that. Okay, so this is the thing that I don't get.
We're going to get that into the next segment.
How can they make a decision when they have no power to convene? I mean, you're putting the cart in front of the horse, it seems like.
Well, I think that begs the question of whose job is it to initially decide whether there's a quorum. I mean, the courts always have, for instance, jurisdiction to decide their own jurisdiction, and if answering the quorum question is within the legislative competence,
doesn't the quorum question that's been presented here require us to interpret our own state constitution? Isn't that our thing? Isn't that what we do as the Supreme Court? So why is this anything beyond an ordinary question of constitutional interpretation that we can deal with?
Yeah, thank you. The separation of powers contemplates that there are certain very limited questions that are committed to one branch or the other, right? It doesn't mean that the Constitution doesn't require anything. I think a great example is the executive. This is under the federal Constitution, but if the same principles apply, the executive has a duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. No one would say that duty doesn't mean anything, but we do say that the courts don't step in and try to enforce that. And we would say this is a similar situation.
But counsel, if you're right, we never would have decided Palmer the way it was decided. I mean, essentially what we said in Palmer is there's a dispute here about the authority of the executive branch, in that instance, the lieutenant governor, to come in and break a tie in the Senate. And one could argue that that was interfering in the workings
but the Constitution
of the Senate, which is what you're arguing. We don't have any right or business in stepping into the House's determination of who the speaker should be. But that's effectively what happened in Palmer, because we were doing much like Justice Gaius has referred to. We were interpreting the Minnesota Constitution. And I guess I just don't see the difference ultimately between what we did in Palmer, where we made it very clear that there are unique and extraordinary circumstances where the judicial branch
buying that
must
argument,
step
which
in.
doesn't mean that they don't still.
It was an interbranch dispute, Madam Chief Justice. It was the lieutenant governor trying
He's
to
not
assert
pushing
power
back
in the
on
legislative
enough to
branch
say
that he did not
67 is a
have.
But
quorum.
even if they don't take this argument, if the court has jurisdiction here, they could still look at what is a quorum, which is really essentially what they're going to decide on. You heard the little pushback against Democrats, and they might still say, well, a quorum is how many elected members you have. I'd say it's how many actually showed up day one and presented an election certificate, which would be 67.
I don't know. I mean, in your brief, you talk about the fact that Secretary Simon has, I forget the language, engaged in some kind of egregious executive branch overreach or something, words to that effect. So you've pulled in the executive branch as well, and you're challenging the Secretary of State's authority to preside, as Statute 505 says that he can. So I grant you that it is primarily a legislative dispute, but you've pulled in the Secretary of State as well. So now you've got the executive branch involved too.
Because there's a law that conflicts with the
There is no
Constitution.
constitutional basis for the Secretary of State
Right,
to
there you go.
preside
Bam.
over the legislature.
Exactly.
So I think, I mean, if that were the issue that the court were deciding, then there would be a basis for deciding that does the Secretary of State have the constitutional power to do that.
But
That's
Councilor,
not what's
aren't
being
we
argued.
deciding what a quorum is under our Minnesota Constitution? And if we don't decide that, you're saying that we leave it to the legislature to decide that for themselves, to interpret the Constitution, and no one can challenge
Well,
that?
certainly not the Secretary of
So
State.
this is an important distinction, Your Honor. The court has the power to review the validity of statutes. If the legislature tries to enact a statute...
Well, and the Constitution.
We can't interpret the validity of the Constitution? Yeah.
No, certainly. No question.
I mean, you started your whole argument only focused on statutes too, which I thought was weird, but go ahead.
So the court has the power to determine whether statutes comply with the Constitution.
getting eaten alive,
that's the
doesn't
tenor
it?
of what I'm saying. And the court, of course, that includes interpreting the Constitution. So if the legislature attempts to enact a statute, the court does have authority to look into whether it was constitutionally enacted. I think the case is Bull versus King, if I'm not mistaken. It's from the 1930s, and the court has consistently applied that. That is a different set of rules. This case does not implicate those rules. This case is about whether the court can look into the procedural propriety of the House's internal organization decisions.
But you're separating. That distinction is such a fine one. I mean, you're peeling that onion really thinly, because it isn't just about the House's internal regulations and operations, because the House has to conduct that business pursuant to the Constitution. And so it seems to me that circles you right back around to, is the House doing so legitimately?
I think this is
there a quorum?
Nelson right now, Nicholas Nelson Marti,
So I don't know that you
1967.
can just put it in this little bitty
Cross-Castle.
bucket
I believe that's who's arguing
of
right now.
the House's internal regulations. Because again, I don't think Palmer would have come out in the way that it did if that were true.
Or Gould.
Or Gould.
So I mean, the House certainly has constitutional obligations. That, I mean, every member of the House takes an oath to uphold the Constitution, and they're required to consider that in how they organize themselves. That doesn't mean that there are not certain instances where the judge of what the Constitution requires isn't the House. You know, the Constitution contemplates that this court will do certain things, like hire a clerk. I think that's a pretty good analogy, because the Constitution does specifically talk about that. If the House were trying to pass a statute to say, no, the court didn't properly hire their clerk, we're removing the clerk, I think that would pose a separation of powers problem.
You know,
Fair
Council,
argument.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Justice McKay.
Well, I'm moving on to a different topic,
Okay.
so if you have something more, go ahead.
So it sounds like they got a lot on that.
Okay. One last question on the separation of powers. It does seem to me that not deciding in some ways is making a decision.
Well, yeah, because the Democrats put you in that position, of course.
To let the House resolve these things.
And
Could the House make a different decision in another biennium? Define the quorum differently?
Well, one House doesn't formally bind another. I mean, houses do, you know,
I mean, you mean like the House of Representatives doesn't bind a future House of Representatives?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, there is a system of precedent that's recognized. Hines' precedence is something that legislators look at, right? That's for the federal Congress, but houses certainly should think about what previous houses have did. And
But they could.
that. I think, but just the same way
Of
this
course they
court can
could.
overturn its
Of
own
course they
decisions, a
could.
later House could overturn an
100%.
earlier House's
That's how
decision.
government
I have
works,
a
by the way.
question. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. I have a question that sort of goes back to a question that
By the way,
Justice
good
Pete
camera work by
Thiessen
NPR.
posed, and that
I'm
is,
pretty impressed, yeah.
assuming
That's
that
good.
State-sponsored
in
media.
Minnesota, there was the snowstorm. Highly unlikely, I realize.
Okay, now we're getting to the question of actual numbers of
nobody
quorum.
in northern Minnesota and no representatives in southern Minnesota can make it in. And so there are 67 members within the Twin Cities who show up. Can they transact business, and if so, what business can they transact?
I think that really well illustrates the relatively low stakes of the question here and why it can be left to the legislature without creating any kind of crisis. So yes, those 67 could transact business. They could do things like create committees, elect leadership, schedule readings on bills that the Constitution requires, that sort of thing. Of course, as soon as the members from outstate got in, if the majority changed hands, as night follows day, that would result in a change in leadership, perhaps a change in rules. Everything could be rearranged because it's a democratic body, majority rules. Now, the other point is that under our current understanding, that 67-member majority could not enact statutes. Justice Thiessen is right. I think that the cases don't expressly say that it requires a majority of all seats in the House to do these things. So the court has never expressly decided that. But the respondents here are being cautious and are taking the position that it does require 68 votes. So you know, it really would be just about how does the House organize itself for a few days or a few weeks or however long it takes for the snowplows to get out there and get people into the office.
What about Wagner? So Wagner wasn't about the passage of a bill. That was about whether there was the constitutional problem was whether there was 2/3 to waive the reading of the bill, right?
Correct.
So not a doesn't that, and we decided that, doesn't that undermine your argument?
I think this goes to sort of the reasoning that the court has applied on the whole, right? Which is that when the court is deciding is a statute valid? Has the legislature constitutionally enacted a statute? There's just different rules that come into play, right? So if this legislature tried to enact a statute, we'd be in a different ballgame, right? Where we wouldn't be talking about the same principles we are here.
Okay. I don't understand why they give in on that one, by the way.
A different topic on.
You know what I mean? Phil Kennedy, I hate lawyers.
The secretary in their reply, you didn't ever get a chance to respond to this, and in their affidavit talks about this question of whether the decision not to recognize Mr. Johnson's certificate of election was proper. So do you think there's a valid certificate of election for Johnson? And you know, the House actually did vote to accept, I guess, right, the decision, but after the session initiated.
Yeah. I have no idea whether there's a valid certificate of election or not.
Do you know who made the decision that certificate that was actually brought to the House by the secretary was decided that it wasn't a valid certificate of election?
I don't know. I think it's. I mean,
when
I read that, I thought it was very odd that the court was being told in one breath you don't have to look at legislative minutia, and then in the next breath, it seemed that the court was being asked to solve the case of the missing election certificate, which certainly seems like legislative minutia to me. I mean, our position is that that seat was vacant not because of what happened to a legislative, what happened to an election certificate in some back office somewhere. That seat was vacant because no one from that district showed up and took the oath of office or claimed to be elected to that seat.
But a bunch of people, other people worked. There were 133 counted, and many of them didn't show up either.
Yeah, they should have done that.
That's true. That would present another question. I mean, the Journal of the House reflects that the majority that was there accepted that oath of office that those members took in a different place.
Which is
it doesn't really matter because
so
we're talking about
is
67 a majority. 67 is a majority of 133. 67 would also be a majority of 67 if that were the number.
No, but it's not of 134. So if you count, if Mr. Johnson's certificate was valid, then you lose under either argument.
We just don't think it's about the validity of the certificate. I mean, if there were a valid certificate, but the member died, or the member fled the country, or otherwise just never showed up, the seat would be vacant.
Can we talk about the Constitution now and what your view of the quorum clause is in our state constitution? And specifically, I want to talk about the relationship between the clause in the federal constitution and in our state constitution. And why, in your view, we should be sort of marrying ourselves to the interpretation in you know, of the quorum clause in the United States Constitution. What's your best argument for why we should be doing that?
So what I would say is the best argument is that it's what this court has previously said, and what the federal Congress does is just confirmation that this court's in good company, and there's no reason to change it, right? And I mean, mean, I think the best way to do this is to walk through Eastland versus Gould and Peterson and what the court decided there. The question in Eastland is, what is 2/3 of a quorum? I'm sorry, what is 2/3 of a vote, right? Is it 2/3 of a quorum, or is it 2/3 of all the seats, or some larger number, right? And what the court said, the way the court reasoned its way to that decision, was first to say, well, a quorum is a majority of the House, but wait a minute, the court said, just passing ordinary legislation takes a majority of all members, and that could be more than a quorum. That was the court's point of departure. And then they said, well, we think that you know,
yeah, $5 rumble in for Brad Ganser. He says seated members is 67. The quorum should be 34. Done. Now get.
I know. I feel like they missed that argument by accepting the fact that people that didn't even show up. I don't know. Read the statute to you guys. You tell me.
50 years later in Peterson, the court explicitly
that it's
adopts
more likely that argument just wouldn't work, and that's why they're skipping over it.
Yeah, you know, I guess you have to have some faith that these lawyers thought this stuff through, but you never know.
About this. If you're also talking about just the
I'm not a
majority of the
lawyer.
entire
I'm in
council
politics.
or the body,
I'll tell you the political reality. Court was the justices were right. It comes down to politics in the end.
Just the plain language of the term members elected maybe doesn't evoke what this court said it does in the Peterson decision. I mean, just looking at the plain language, wouldn't you agree that it'd be sort of the opposite, actually, of what we said in Peterson?
I don't know. I would agree it's the opposite. I would agree that this is a case where the plain language only gets you so far, right? I mean, you know, the Constitution talks about the House. Well, what's the House? You know, the Constitution says it's composed, members refers to members who compose the House. So is that people? Is that seats? You know, there's different arguments that you can make. I think that the court's inference that, well, wait a minute, they talk about members elected in some places. They talk about just members in other places. They talk about the House in other places.
You know what would be a good analogy? Turn the volume down here.
Supposed to mean something different.
If you have a dining room set that has 6 seats, but you have 5 members in your damn family, you don't have 6 people in your family, right? It's like there's 134 seats, but there's a reason that there's not 134 people in there, because the Democrats cheated, right? And so there's a vacancy. The body, the House, is not 134 seats.
Parliamentary manuals guide our how should they guide our decision in this case. You know, there's been some discussion. Ms. Kramer referenced Masons. There's been some talk about Masons in the briefing. Of course, there are other parliamentary manuals out there. How much importance should we be placing on those as we grapple with the meaning of the term under our own Constitution?
I would say not much. I think this court's decisions have set forth the way forward. I think the court's in good company. The manuals confirm that, right, that there's multiple choices here. Minnesota has made its choice. There's just no reason to reverse course.
Well, counsel, the manuals confirm more than that. Section 501 indicates that the rule that apparently the House has been following, according to the chief clerk of the House, is the majority rule in the country, that the total membership of a legislative body is to be taken as the basis for computing a quorum. Why isn't that information that we could rely on, particularly when the chief clerk of the House is apparently indicating that that's been the standard practice in this state for apparently as long as he's been in that position?
I don't understand. I mean, it has for a long time taken 68 votes, not because anybody thinks it's the total number of seats, but just because for a lot of the time that was how many legislators there were, right? So both of the standards would have worked out to 68, and nobody explained which way it went. Now, as for, you know, why shouldn't the court consider Masons? The answer is because this court's own decisions say something different, and when it's between this court's decisions and a book that somebody wrote, this court's decisions are what you follow.
And when you're referencing our decisions, you're relying on Gould and Peterson, and that's it, right?
As reiterated by this court in Ram Development in 1971, and as I've said, this court's in good company, right? I mean, there's a long tradition among many states, among many authorities.
Ram, there was 7 of 7, though, right? There were actually 7 elected, sitting, valid members. Just that was about abstentions. That's a little different.
So correct. People were asking the court to extend or even change the rule in Ram to say, well, maybe people who aren't there shouldn't count either. And the court said, basically, no, we like the rule we set before. We're going to stick with it. I'd like to speak to the public policy question, if I may. I think that it's actually a pretty clear call, if the court gets this far, that the public policy weighs to the side of the respondents here. The petitioner's argument would be, well, you need to make sure you have a broad base of representation for there to be a quorum. But realistically, what we're talking about is out of the 134 legislative districts in Minnesota, the question is, should 68 or 67 of them have representation on the floor in order for the House to take action? That just doesn't seem to move the needle much.
But counsel, what about those who are from the district that's unrepresented? I mean, granted, there's other issues with that, but what about them? And I think it's 40B, am I right? Jamie Becker Finn's old seat. What about those people?
So again, I mean, those people, if one more legislator shows up, those people are not going to be represented, and there's going to be a quorum. And I mean, the remedy for them is a special election, which, you know, I know this court has on the mind and is going to happen, right? That's what our Constitution contemplates. But the other side of this, right? I mean, the time when you would get to serious questions about, wow, do we want such a small number of people operating the House for the whole state, would be if there were some kind of catastrophe, right? If there were a huge disaster that vacated
There's
a lot
actually
of
a state
seats.
statute that
If
shows
that were to happen, I would suggest that the public policy concerns about the continuity of government would become much more important. And I don't think you need to just take my word for it. We've talked about there's a statute, right? The legislature has determined constitutional questions about that. I would note that the Constitution does have an attack clause that allows the legislature to provide for continuity of government. So there would be interesting questions there. But I think we know I think that's clearly the way the policy debate.
One of my issues with your policy argument is that due to Section 22, Article 4, Section 22, which you seem to concede requires 68 people to pass a law.
This is my point.
Due to that, your policy argument only gets you so far. I mean, the legislature can meet and organize and maybe try to compel some more people to show up, but they can't pass laws under your own argument.
Right. Like, why would they have taken that position? I don't understand that.
Flaw with your policy argument here?
Well, I think it means that there's line drawing going on here, right? How much do you want the legislature to be able to do or not do? And I would say that it's the entire modern legislative process that can happen under a quorum, short of actually voting on the law. But the best example is the Constitution's requirement that a bill be scheduled for 3 readings
with the Supreme Court if it wasn't already premeditated.
The readings can be scheduled by a quorum. You can get all the way to the final vote. So the legislation could be teed up and ready to go by the time a new majority comes into place and you have 68 votes for it.
Can I just ask one question, which isn't, I just didn't pick up this argument in the briefs, but the Attorney General, the Secretary, argued that Section 23, because in the first paragraph it refers just to 2/3 of the House twice, and then in the second paragraph, it refers to 2/3 of the members elected to each House, that they essentially are equivalent. Did you have a response to that? I mean, one is about vetoes generally, one's about line item vetoes. I mean, is there what do you think? What do you make of that argument?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, the court's reasoning in Eastland was textual to a certain point, or logical to a certain point, and then functional, right?
Let's end right here. I think we got a good taste of how things are going right there, Jesse. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. You know, sometimes judges want to play devil's advocate a little bit. They want to ask the questions, push back, get the arguments.
Get everything on record, right? Yep.
You know, so if it was just a typical court case, that's maybe how I'd read it. But you can't ignore they're all Governor Dayton and Walz appointees. That was the former Democrat Speaker of the House. What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, and I had seen some comments here from like Billy 22, who is, I think the Republicans, I agree with Billy 22 here, where he's saying that the Republicans are, somewhat admitting to accepting the illegitimate swearing-in ceremony that the Democrats had by recognizing their election certificates and suggesting that these people are recognized members of the House. They shouldn't be considered recognized members of the House until they show up and take the oath of office as administered from the Secretary of State to the Chief Justice. So until that happens, which is required in law on the first day of session, I wouldn't say that the Democrats have been sworn in either, and I don't think that the Republicans should push that argument. And he needs to consistently articulate that it's ultimately up to the House and not the court to really interfere on this. And it's one of those things that if the Democrats chose to continue to not show up, that would be their MO. They could plan on doing so. Of course, the Republicans have alternatives to be able to recall them and fight the avenue in other ways. So,
well, we're going to get into that in the next segment. Pull up the B5 real quick, Dawson. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very likely that they came up with that argument too, right? Like, they had a secret swearing in, but it wasn't a real swearing in.
Well,
so
okay,
they're not members.
Glad you asked that question. Let's just go back. Remember, Minnesota Constitution first, right? Supreme law of the land, then state statute. So if something's contrary to this Constitution, it's a unconstitutional law. That doesn't mean the Supremes always see it that way, but that's the way it should be, okay? They do see it in some cases. So there's nothing in the Constitution that further specifies the first day other than the Minnesota House chooses its presiding officer. That's going to be a separate case in front of the Supreme Court. You heard him allude to it. So this is the statute that's relevant here, and it's Minnesota Statute 3.05, okay? Chapter 3 is the legislature, essentially, in Minnesota law. At noon of the day appointed for convening the legislature, the members shall meet. So they already broke the law because the members didn't come and meet, all right? Doesn't mean they can meet or they may meet. It says shall meet in their respective chambers. This is where then it says the lieutenant governor calls the Senate to order and the Secretary of State calls the House of Representatives to order. Calls them to order. That's all that says it by the statute to do. And by the way, the Constitution says nothing of it. And then it says in the absence, the oldest member. Okay, so the person so acting shall appoint from the members present a clerk pro tem who shall call the legislative districts in the order of their numbers, which they did. And that was Peggy Scott that was the the clerk pro tem. As each is called, the persons claiming to be members, because remember, the legislature just meets, so what makes you a member? In my opinion, the statute is pretty much saying what most common sense would be is you got to present something and take this oath of office then, right? So it's the persons claiming to be members from each shall present their certificates to be filed. And once again, it's shall, not may, shall. Only 67 people claiming to be members showed up on the legislative day first legislative day. That means, in my opinion, I think Brad Ganser wrote on there earlier, there's only 67 members of the House. It doesn't matter if you swore in on Sunday. It says all whose certificates are so presented shall then stand and be sworn. You can't swear in the day before. And if you didn't show up and present your election certificate, how do we know those people are members? Why are they getting paid? Like this question, it's like never was ever asked as far as our knowledge in Minnesota history. And it seems to me at this point, at least with what you guys just watched, the slaughter that just took place in front of the Minnesota Supreme Court, the Republicans didn't think this through. And we were calling it live while it was happening. Like, no, there's 67 members.
Like, what are the odds that this lawyer's job, I would assume, is to just sit here and look at this stuff all day long. How did he miss it? Like, or is it just a bad argument and he knows it and he knows not to even try to put it?
I mean, look, it's like
it's not even that it's necessarily a bad argument. Sometimes it's just a matter of you think that argument is going to be shut down by the courts, so then you want to be able to pivot to the next argument. And so sometimes it's just a matter of presenting things in the right way. So I could see, a variety of things because, obviously any lawyer is trying to present their best case in the very first setting so that from there they can, they start with their ultimate and they argue from there. So I'd assume that all of the strategy had been considered beforehand. So we'll just have to see where it goes from here.
Well, the other thing is it's like you could say, why did that quarterback not throw the ball accurately to the guy that was open? And because there's a range of quarterbacks. And the worst quarterback on 32 teams, so the 32nd ranked quarterback is not going to make the same throws the first ranked quarterback's going to make, right? Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback. And so sometimes...
Are you saying it's a bad lawyer?
I don't know, but it certainly doesn't seem like that went well, okay? I don't know anything about Nicholas. Cross-Castle has some very competent lawyers, for sure. Maybe they just didn't put the resources behind her. Maybe there's something I don't see. I'm not a lawyer, okay? And maybe they're doomed anyhow because it's a Democrat thing. But once again, we've said it. We've written about this for 3 weeks. I felt like they had lost big time when they even acknowledged that there was 133 members, which still, at least has to be 133 because, 67 is a majority of that. But I just don't believe there's 133 members of the Minnesota House right now. I think there's 67 because I think the statute that governs this literally says you got to show up and present your election certificate. Because otherwise, why can't I just show up and say, well, I'm the member too,
At what point does your belief just not matter though? Legally speak, I mean, if
it's politics.
It wouldn't matter if the Constitution expressly defined what a quorum is, but it doesn't. So because of that, that's why this whole battle is going on. And it's pretty clear that, since it's not clearly defined, and since we're in a position where Republicans are sitting with 67 and there's 133 election certificates on file, as per Steve Simon, he's the one who said that number, 133. And really, we should be talking about 132 when we exclude Brad Tabke. So the Republicans clearly have a majority, and it's just going to be up to the court, which really, shouldn't be able to interfere on this. But if they try to interfere, we'll just have to see which direction it goes, and where the what each side does with.
Did it seem like he?
Hold on. Why is Brad Tabke a state representative right now? He didn't show up and present his election certificate. Right. So why is it only him? It should be all the Democrats, right?
Didn't it feel like the lawyer folded really fast on the courts, belong in this issue at all?
Yeah, and it seemed like he got outgunned on that, and he had 3. And I've always wondered, how would you take that if you're the court, a judge on a court, going, you guys really shouldn't weigh in on it? I would think that's kind of insulting to the court, but sometimes they do. By the way, this is the actual Minnesota Constitution, Section 13, quorum. A majority of each house constitutes a quorum. And so the real question is, what's a majority of the house? And as my example was, and I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but it's the Democrats' argument is there's 134 legislative districts, 134 seats, and so a majority is 134 is 68. But I look at it as it doesn't matter how many seats there are, it's how many elected members there are. And in that case, it's 133. Just like my dining room table at home has 6 seats, but I only have 5 members in my family. My house is 5 members. It's not 6. Just because there's an extra seat, there is nobody in that seat. That's that's very debatable. That's a vacant seat unless my wife agrees to have another one. So, all right. This next segment's brought to you by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, give them a chance of financing a home at johngaltmortgage.com. Real quick, and then I want to get into Dale's on set here. And Jesse, we want to hear how inauguration activities were. The Minnesota House Republicans have got to start playing smart and got to start playing strong. They're getting press. Alpha News wrote an article about this, but I don't understand why this looks so dumb. First of all, once again, the argument should be the House is meeting. The House has 67 members. 34 is the majority. That should have been their argument, in my opinion. But now they're trying to compel the Democrats to show up. Why? I mean, just go conduct business anyhow. But this is what they do. They asked the governor. They asked him. It wasn't even a strongly worded letter. Go pull up the C1. This is a motion that passed on the House floor, and it reads, whereas the 66 members of the Democrat Farmer Labor Caucus in the Minnesota House of Representatives have been absent during the first week of legislative session, and whereas the continued absence of DFL caucus deprives Minnesota residing in their districts of representatives during critical debates and legislative work conducted in the House of Representatives, be it resolved that the Minnesota House of Representatives hereby calls upon Governor Tim Walz to direct the Minnesota State Patrol to locate the absent members of the DFL caucus and ensure their presence in the House of Representatives no later than 3:30 p.m. on Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. So basically an hour and 20 minutes from now. They call on Governor Walz. Well, that's some harsh words. I'm sure Governor Walz is going to heed that call even after he said, we don't recognize you guys have organized. Wow, good job. Have we won the fight yet? I mean, it's the most pointless resolution on the planet. Mm-hmm. But maybe I don't see an angle. This one was actually done by Niska. Tweet at me, Niska, if I'm missing something here. It just seems useless. This, and the Democrats don't show up, and then they send their goon army of crazies to the Capitol to stop committee hearings. that they are using the talking points by the Democrats. Okay, got my blood boiling a little bit. Boy, if this isn't going to be more interesting when the Democrat Supreme Court determines that essentially the Democrats can just shut down the legislative branch of government, because that's essentially what's being determined here, is can the Democrats just shut down the Minnesota House from even organizing? Bill Dingsman. Jake's right, but if the court rules that they need 68 members present, they should just go grab one of the commie Democrats from Minneapolis or St. Paul and compel their ass into the Capitol to have 68. There you go. I guess we could just compel that. All right. My blood's boiling, but it hasn't been boiling all week. I just gotta say, Dale, I've had a different sense. Like the environment has shifted since Tuesday. Put your mic closer to your face, Dale, and MAGA Jesse, you were out there. You guys were supposed to attend the inauguration,
yes, we
but
were.
That got canceled. Apparently not everyone's as tough as us Minnesotans during weather. When the Super Bowl is in Minnesota and it's -4 degrees, we still go to the outdoor festivities. But apparently inaugurations, when it's 25 degrees and a casual wind, we can't do it anymore. Was that Amy Klobuchar's decision, by the way, now that we know she's in charge of the inauguration? Anyhow, what were the highlights from the trip out to D.C.?
Well, there was a lot of excitement in the air, that's for sure. There's highlights and there's lowlights. There's some things that went great and some things that weren't so good. So we met a lot of important people, and we saw a lot of important people. And but there were some challenges. The weather was awful, as you know. And
how awful? Like, I mean, honestly.
Oh, it was cold. I mean, it was really cold.
25 degrees is cold?
Well, if you were out there for a while. Some of those people stood in line since 3 a.m. to get into the rally.
Is it just because people don't know how to dress in the cold? Like,
No.
To me, it's like a heat wave when it's 25 degrees nowadays.
Well, you're tougher than the average bear.
Well, there you go. That's what I was waiting for. I just wanted Dale to admit it. It's on camera now. We got it. What important people did you get to run into out there?
Well, I've got some pictures here.
Let's pull them up.
We could run through some pictures quick.
Oh, look at that.
So this is the rally. So this is the rally the day before the inauguration. We can run through them here. And there's Trump on stage with
That's
Elon Musk, and there's Little X. He was a riot jumping around on stage. So he's...
This is the day. That was the day before. Oh, Dale, you got that picture. I didn't know you're the one that took that picture.
Didn't take that one. Okay. Next.
Wait, hold on. Go back to
There's a Trump Valley.
He'll have back to picture. I think Trump asked him, "How gay are you?" Gay.
I see. So do you think he was a natural-born Indian? They don't have facial hair, but do they have armpit hair?
I wouldn't even notice that. All right, let's move on. It is really funny that it's the Village people that Trump loves so much, but I guess they do come from New York.
Yeah.
There's this beautiful family. What's this?
That's the White House, but the roads are all blocked. The entrances are blocked. And when I say the roads were blocked, around the hotels where we were, there were 8-foot-high barricades down all the streets, dump trucks filled full of sand on all the street corners, and you couldn't get anywhere. So very difficult to move around.
Okay. Oh, you were in the Action for Liberty name tag there, too.
Yes, and I'll tell you, that Action for Liberty name tag opens doors. This will get you through security. This will get you places where you're not supposed to be. You can cut in the front of a line with this name tag.
I heard if you join the Founders Club, $50 a month at Action for Liberty, you get your own name tag, amongst many other great perks.
That is a bargain, I'll tell you.
That is a bargain, right?
Yeah.
So it gets you everywhere in Washington, D.C. Yeah. That's how much
I took a picture of this. So this was the it's the Waldorf now, but it used to be the Trump Hotel in his first term. So this is the inauguration platform that was supposed to happen at the state capitol.
Oh, okay.
And we were going to be right up front in the blue section, right up the front. We got, let's see the next one. We've got, these are inauguration tickets for seated seats right up front. But of course, they're signed by, who are they signed by?
Amy Klobuchar.
Amy Klobuchar.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so what happened here?
Would have been much better if it was signed by Royce White.
Yes, it would have been. So Amy was pretty unprepared for this inauguration. So I think she got her training from the fire department of Los Angeles or something for contingency plans. So
look at that.
Yep. Ducey from Fox and Friends. Had a long talk, and we rode the metro with Tom Fitton from
Judicial Watch.
Judicial Watch, yeah, great guy. Oh, here's me with Ronald Reagan. That's as close as I could get to Ronald.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is gorgeous.
Yep, Capitol Rotunda.
And you were allowed in there, right? You didn't just
yes. This is the day after. This is the day after.
And nobody said, "Come on in." You know, that was an undercover fed to you.
No.
Okay.
No climbing through windows.
Good. Oh, look at that handsome devil.
Yeah, there's Jesse and Dale. That's that, and that is the inauguration platform right behind us.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
So we were right there, 24 hours late as usual.
Oh, Russell Brand, no kidding. Where was he at?
This is an event that I attended a couple times. So where we got the tickets through and so forth. This is Meredith Isler. She runs a program called Helping My Heroes from Texas. And what they do is they're building 100 homes for disabled veterans. And we had offered to help seat these veterans. So that's why we were going to get tickets up front, because there were disabled veterans. And we had a couple of events here. We met with a bunch of disabled veterans and listened to their stories. And, you know, many of them there were partial amputees and burn victims, etc. Very touching. So the Hall of the Statues. There's Jesse overlooking the original Supreme Court. Used to be in the Capitol.
That's all that I got.
I wish we could have got you a buffalo hat there, Jesse. What didn't go well? You kind of said something didn't go well. It wasn't all positive. What?
Well, I mean, you know, the logistics were horrible. So the hotel I was in, you know, they switched things up. After the hotel was full, of course, everything was booked out. The hotel sent out an announcement that says, well, the entrances for the hotel are closed, so if you have a car in here, you can't get out. And they put concrete barriers up and 8-foot-high barriers around the building. And so I called for Ubers, of course, and you could see them on the map if they're coming to get us to go to an event. And I could see them go this way, and the Uber app for the Uber drivers doesn't let them know that all of a sudden there's dump trucks blocking the road everywhere. So they couldn't get to us. So I could see them going this way, I could see them going that way, I could see them going this way. They're coming around. They're trying every which way to get to us. And then after an hour and a half of waiting, they cancel. So then you get another one, and he tries it. So then I gave up on Uber, and I tried Lyft, and then Lyft canceled. So then we ended up getting on the Metro Underground.
Is it still okay? I mean, they used to have a pretty clean and well-functioning metro. Has it gone to the wayside? I haven't been to D.C. in like a decade.
Well, it's not bad, but
not New York bad.
No, nothing like that. No, it's not that bad, and I'm sure it's going to get a lot cleaner quick.
Yeah,
because things are happening. Trump's going to clean up that town.
Jesse, you were saying there weren't any mass protests out there that you saw.
Not too many, you know. And yeah, I heard some federal workers walking by one day. They were complaining about how Trump was forcing all of them to show up and get back to work because, you know, it's interesting to be in D.C. and you walk by all these massive buildings. You know, I was looking at the Department of Health and Human Services building, and you just look at this massive building and you just go, most of those rooms aren't even filled right now. Most of the people that are working there don't show up for their jobs. And I'm also thinking, as I'm looking at that building, RFK Jr. is about to clean up shop here. So, you know, it was so exciting to see all of that. So, yeah, no, I agree with Dale that it was insane to be up and down these streets, that all of these streets were being blocked off, that there were barricades, especially during the rally. I had to find my way out because, yeah, it was... you know, barricades everywhere you went. There was one corner I went to where they said, we can't leave here until Trump's done. And I said, I'm not waiting until Trump's done speaking. Who knows how long that could be. So, you know, but it was absolutely nuts in there. And, you know, I didn't see that many protests at all. There was, you know, some here and there, but, you know, it was groups of 2 or 3. It was never anything massive. So...
Nothing is massively big as the crazies that went to the Minnesota Capitol.
Yeah, definitely not. No, there was, I had seen something beforehand that there was a protest outside the Supreme Court a few days before, MAGA had really shown up in D.C., but that was kind of like the Democrats' last little stand was before everybody showed up, and then they all went into hiding as soon as MAGA came to town.
I got a couple more questions for you. We'll do that in the post show. If you want to watch our post show, even if you're not watching live, you can support us by going to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support us on the top, or if you're on Rumble, you can just click on join us, or you know what I'll do is I'll just post a link right here in the comment section. Just click on that. For $8 a month or $88 a year, we give a month off if you do an annual subscription.
And there was one quick question from the comments I wanted to answer real quick here. It's about Kathleen H. Ron. She says, is the resolution that Niska had put his name on that the GOP passed, is that the first step for the recall elections? Which I think very well could be the reasoning for why they are trying to mandate that these state representatives show up. It just gives
There's no other process to compel them, and the governor, maybe that's a fair point. Yeah, listen, it looked so dumb, just how it was worded, but like I said, maybe I'm not seeing something on that, right? All right, so if you want to support our show and the great work we're doing, become a supporter. Go to that link that's in the comment section, or go to truthhurtsnews.com. Click on support us on the top. On the post show, we'll ask a couple more questions to you. I also want to talk about some future shows. I want to get your guys' opinion, the premium subscribers' opinion on a couple, I think, interesting content, and a couple other of the behind-the-scenes stuff that have taken place this week in Minnesota politics. We couldn't do this without our great sponsors, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you're buying a home, go with JohnGaltMortgageCompany.com, or go to JohnGaltMortgage.com. John Galt Mortgage Company, not just a great mortgage company, but great meme game on Facebook and X. Also brought to you by Alpine Country in St. Cloud, Minnesota. For everyone that's a show sponsor, premium subscriber, we'll see you in 1 minute. Everyone else will be back here on Tuesday. Take care.